Hey guys, welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Andre Seegers, and we're again joined by Derrick to discuss Mario Kart 8 even more in depth. So let's get started. Alright Derrick, so, we already had a discussion before, where we covered the Koopalings and some of the levels, like a super surface level impressions piece. But now that we did the analysis, we finally figured out how basically all these tracks are, constructed. Like, we broke them down, we figured out, basically every element of these tracks. So I figured we'd go through them more in depth and, figure out more, or, talk about our impressions of how they're going to play. So, the trailer showed off 4 new tracks and 4 returning ones, and I figured we'd start with the new ones first, because they're probably the coolest looking of the bunch. So, the first one that the trailer shows off is, like this nightclub type thing, like with a giant disco ball, and it takes place at night. And I theorized it might be called Larry Lights based on the sign. That's probably not what it's going to be called, but let's just we'll call it Larry Lights for the purpose of this conversation.
Yeah, we gotta call it something, and unfortunately there's not really any other indicator to what it could be called, but that's the first sign we saw. We saw other Koopalings, so we know it's some sort of Koopaling disco club.
Well, you actually just hit on it. A lot of people are calling it Koopaling Club, or Club Koopaling. Especially
like
because,
that.
yeah, you get the alliteration. They could just, replace the C with a K, like, Nintendo often does. So yeah, that would be kind of a cool name. So this track is pretty wild. I mean, when we first saw the trailer, it was blowing my mind, kind of. And for a while, I almost thought it was that they had gone back and redid the visuals for Music Park, because it has a whole music theme going on. But once I broke it down, I realized that this is an entirely different beast, and it's such an interesting track design for, what they're going here with how it wraps around, how it seems to wrap around and even crosses underneath the finish or the starting line, which you can just barely see in one of the scenes that I pointed out. So what's your take on this course? I
mean, this is probably my favorite new course that they showed off. I mean, the others are pretty cool, but this one just has that wow effect, and I don't know if it's because of the visuals they provide with it, just the beating track and just the club atmosphere and how it just feels full of energy, or post fact, looking at your analysis, I mean, I helped you a little bit trying to get some details, but I never realized exactly how much it wrapped around upon itself. So it kind of reminds me of one of those smaller roller coasters that are in a much tighter space that just sort of use that space by going in and around itself, and being able to see that and see how it does that just gives it such a unique feel.
Yeah, it really, I mean, as with some of the tracks here, but it really shows how anti-gravity is really totally changing how these tracks are going to be designed. Like, this is something that you wouldn't have gotten in the previous Mario Kart game, and it looks really cool here. And let me just tell you, it was blowing my mind or rather, maybe not blowing my mind, it was killing me trying to figure out how all these scenes were connected. Like, I felt like a detective, like in a movie on a murder case, trying to piece together all the clues. And when I saw that the track, in that one scene with Mario when he's flying, you can see, when you see the track wrap underneath, I'm like, holy crap, it's the same thing. And it's bizarre. It's almost bizarre how intertwined a lot of these tracks seem now. The footprint really is a lot smaller than it seems, I would think, for these tracks. And it's just really cool to see how they're going about in designing these courses.
Yeah, I think one of the common elements we've seen with all these tracks because of the anti-gravity is that they almost seem very condensed. They don't seem very wide, and that may also just be because we're not seeing the whole picture yet. We're just piecing together what we can see. But they seem a lot more condensed, but still filled a lot with a lot of personality and just fun elements. And one of the things I was thinking of as I'm looking at this track is, when we first saw Mario Kart 8 and saw the anti-grav mechanic, one of the first thoughts was, well, why, if they're giving Mario Kart the anti-grav mechanic, why aren't they just doing an F-Zero game? And the more I see these tracks, the more I'm getting is this is a completely different beast than F-Zero. F-Zero has a very different course feel, at least with the bit I played with GX, than anything that Mario Kart 8 is doing. And it's because of that compactness, I think. F-Zero is all about branching out and going these long distances and going in loops and stuff like that. And Mario Kart's all about going around this very set area that they planned out and really taking advantage of that space.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. You're totally right. Yeah, because, I mean, in F-Zero, you're going so quick, there's no background details to make out, and even if there were, you wouldn't have time to. Whereas with Mario Kart, you know, they were able to put a lot more detail into these tracks than they did in F-Zero. It just makes, for the environment, it just makes the whole thing look a lot more interesting than, I mean, well, within F-Zero tracks, and then, you know, I would say most previous Mario Kart games. Yeah, there's just so much going on, and it's just really cool to see how these tracks are being constructed. Well, for instance, and I guess I'll use this as an opportunity to move on to the next track. In Shy Guy Falls, one of the earlier scenes that I figured out is where you see, I think it was Lemmy, or one of the Koopalings, driving along the straightaway, and it looks like he's like about to cross a river. But where he's actually in an anti-gravity section, he's actually completely sideways, and he's actually passing over the waterfall, which kind of like that totally threw me off at first. But I thought it was a river he was going over. I'm like, wait, no, that's actually the waterfall. So so it really gives you like a different perspective on, you know, how these, you know, on the entire course, and how they're building these.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I didn't notice that. I mean, it wasn't until, you know, of course, I watched the analysis and saw you point that out, and then I realized, oh, holy crap, because when you think anti-grav, you're still thinking connected to the wall. You don't really think about them jumping until they're ready to dismount.
Right.
And here we're seeing the anti-grav just, you know, it pretty much almost works in Mario Galaxy, same way as Mario Galaxy, where your whole orientation goes to that surface, and even jumps and everything else keep going along with it, as we can see with this, I guess, waterfall crossing.
Right.
And it's so clever, and I think that's what I like about it.
Yeah, because, I mean, it works, as you said, in Mario Galaxy, where, in effect, you know, it's more for looks than it is for gameplay purposes. Yeah, whereas in F-Zero, it functions a little bit differently. Anyways, but yeah, for Shy Guy Falls, I think this track looks totally awesome. How you race, you know, up and down, you know, you race up one side of the waterfall, and then you come down the other side. And then, you know, you go into the flying section. I just think the whole thing looks totally cool.
Well, I'm thinking to even just past Mario Kart games, and you have a track called Shy Guy Falls, and typically you would think, okay, go through the waterfall, go through some caves, come out the other side of the waterfall, just something basic like that. And with the way they're doing track designs with Mario Kart 8, it seems like they can go a lot more fantastic with it, with us going up and down the waterfalls themselves.
Yeah, right. I mean, waterfalls are nothing new to the Mario Kart games. They've been in almost, I think, every Mario Kart game, at least the 3D ones. And yeah, we've never had anything like this, where, I mean, you're not just racing alongside waterfalls. Yeah, you're driving up and down them, like you're inside the waterfall. Yeah, it's just such a great set piece for one, and it just looks so cool, especially when you're like racing up to the waterfall, and you can see the other racers like going vertical and start going up it. And that's something we see throughout the trailer, is just all these cool scenes of, you know, seeing the track from a distance and just taking it all in. Shy Guy Falls, I'm thinking, might be one of my favorite courses shown so far. I just think the whole thing, it just looks totally awesome put together. And especially, you know, it's different too, because like in the waterfall section, or half of it, yeah, the speed pads are actually falling with it. But yeah, Shy Guy Falls is just a totally awesome looking course. But it's not the only awesome looking course here, because another one is based in a water park, and it looks pretty crazy as well. Now, in the analysis, I kept calling it Sub Coaster, because it has a giant Sub Coaster sign, like, in a couple places throughout the park. And after like 20 hours of doing analysis, my brain just latched onto that as being, this has to be the name of the course. It's so prominent. But as some people in the comments pointed out, it's more likely that that's just the name of that particular ride, you know, being the looping track there. And the course is probably going to be called something else, whether it's going to be called maybe just Water Park, as we saw in the sign in Sunshine Airport, you know, way back in the, you know, the previous trailer. Or, you know, maybe it'll be something Waluigi themed. So we actually see a sign with Waluigi in the background that says Waluigi Seabed. So maybe it's like gonna be like Waluigi's Water Park or something.
It also could be Wario's Water Park, because we see Wario's mustache and his outfit on the Ferris wheel.
Yeah, no, I mean, it would make sense, especially because like Wario, you know, Wario and Waluigi have typically had some of these more like roller coaster type levels. Like Double Dash had Wario Coliseum, and then Mario Kart DS had Waluigi Pinball, and this one, you know, has like a loop, and you know, it actually seems very much in line to those previous 2 courses. So it makes sense for it to be themed either Wario or Waluigi. So this course, I think it looks cool. You know how you enter the museum, you go in, or not? Okay, it's actually a queue for the line or for the ride. Apparently, I called it a museum because it made sense in the analysis. But you enter the queue, you know, the building, then you exit out into the loop, then you enter a underwater section, and then that loops around eventually back to the starting line. But the thing about this course is there's so much detail in it. Like I spent like probably 2 or 3 minutes on a Ferris wheel scene alone, just pointing out all these details in the background.
Well, the thing that impressed me most about that whole Ferris wheel is that I didn't even notice it until you pointed out was the whole overalls matching Wario.
The gondolas?
Yeah, the gondolas. Yeah. I'm like, that just like, I didn't see it at all. It didn't register. And as soon as you pointed it out, I was like, oh my God, I can't unsee it. And it was just too perfect. And you're right, there's just so much details. And I'm like, I'm sure you'll love this, but I'm kind of wondering if Nintendo's going for like a stealth pun, or at least in the American version, because, you know, Wa in Japanese is sort of like bad. That's why it's Wario and Waluigi going for that. Well, it is their Water Park.
Oh, whoa. Wow. Just blew my mind. That'd be something, huh?
Oh, that's a bad pun. But yeah, I mean, it is just fun for that kind of alliteration type of thing. But no, you're right. As far as everything else, I mean, this is a water park. I was like, I kind of want to go there. It just looks fun.
It makes me want. I mean, why isn't there a real Nintendo Land? Damn it! Like it would. Oh, it'd be so awesome. You know, just license it out to Disney. Have them make it for you, Nintendo, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, this course, I would say besides now the interesting thing about this course is besides the loop, it's actually pretty conventional. Like it looks like it could just be part of, actually, correction, it's not even a loop. It's like this vertical, I don't know how to describe, like this vertical turn
bend.
But aside from that, like it looks like it could just be a track from Mario Kart 7. You know, you just have an underwater section and followed by a flying one. It's anti-gravity is really not. Doesn't seem to play a huge role in this course compared to like Shy Guy Falls or one of the others. Now something I pointed out in the analysis is that there are these submarines going along the main track at points. And I thought they might be an obstacle, but some people point out one of the scenes you can actually see the racers apparently emerging from like underneath it. So it looks like they just may be a background detail, like they just might be there just to look cool. And it just really goes to show just how much more effort or detail they're putting into this game compared to like Mario Kart Wii or Mario Kart 7. Like these levels are hyper detailed, and I'm just totally digging it.
Oh yeah, it's just seeing the effort they put into it. I think, and we said this before in the previous session before we did the analysis. It's just seeing the effort is making me more hyped than anything else. I mean, it looks fun, but the details we're seeing is just like, well, if they're putting this much detail into the backgrounds and just these other elements, how much effort are they putting into the main course? The main draw of the game, which is the racing itself. And just by looking at the races, just as much effort. And I'm like, I want to play.
Yeah, so do I. Definitely want to play. And speaking of which, there's another track that looks totally cool that I want to play, but we've barely seen anything of, and that's Dolphin Shoals. There's only a single clip of it in the trailer, but luckily there's just enough of it that I was able to link it to a screenshot that Nintendo also released that showed off a little bit more of the track. And this one, appears to take place like in a tropical themed area that seems to be it's based entirely around the water. It seems you're underwater for the clip. And then it looks like you will leave it at a few points at least. But the main thing is, as we predicted in our last analysis, the dolphins from Mario World appear here, which I think is awesome, because I always just love those dolphins. It's hard to tell, but it seems like they may just be cosmetic, like they may just be a background detail and may not actually affect the race at all. But I don't know, what's your take on this course? I mean, we don't know much about it, so...
Well, first of all, I'm surprised you found that clip in the first place, because that looked like just another part of the water park level. So when you pointed out, the dolphins in the background, I was like, oh wow. But the level itself, it's hard to gauge it too much, other than the fact that yes, it looks primarily underwater, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, maybe we'll have a mostly sky-based level, which I guess we're kind of getting with the airship level they showed off in the last trailer.
Right.
It would be kind of nice to ride the dolphins or have them be a hazard, but even still, just watching them jump along with you as you're racing along would still be kind of cool, just because they haven't really shown up a whole lot.
No, they haven't. They've had a pretty minimal presence. If anything, it kind of would remind me of Wave Race. How like there'd be dolphins in the background of that game too, and they like dance or jump around and do tricks. And speaking of tricks, actually, there's what appears to be like this dolphin ring, in the screenshot, like in the distance. And I was trying to figure out what it could be. Some people in our comments, and I'll delve more into this, and we're gonna do a follow-up analysis. We'll go in more detail about these tracks in that. But one person pointed out that it may give you a speed boost, like some of the rings apparently in Rainbow Road and Mario Kart 7. I think it makes sense. Like I could see it because it looks like there's if you're like flying through the air, perhaps like if you make it to that ring, then you get it gives you a speed boost. Whereas if you don't make it to the ring, you get punished by going back into the water. It
makes sense. I mean, it fits the whole theme. I mean, dolphin and rings, they sort of go together anymore. It's an element that definitely could work. This feels like a track that we'll get to see more of in the next trailer.
Yeah, probably. I'm actually surprised they even showed it off at all, just because they showed a fair amount of the other 3 courses, enough that I was able to piece them together. Then they have this one clip from this one level that doesn't even show anything particularly impressive. It's just them driving through the water like some cheeps and some toads in the background. Now, beyond the 4 main tracks that we already covered, there are 4. They showed off 4 new returning ones, which we actually just did a direct head-to-head comparison of, where we recreated the trailer using the original games to show how the tracks and how much better the graphics look now, and also how some of the track details have changed. And perhaps one of the bigger ones, like one of the more visually impressive, and then one of the ones getting like one of the most amount of gameplay upgrades, is Mario's Circuit, which is originally a Super Circuit course. And here, we see it with like this. We talked a little bit about this before, but this time it has a giant part of the course has been raised at like a 45-degree angle. You can see it's supported by like these car jack looking things. I just think it looks awesome. Like how, especially, not only at a distance, how you can just see it like just towering above everything else, but when you're on top of it, it gives you just this fantastic view of the entire course. And it's really a vantage point. I can't even think of anything similar from a past Mario Kart game. It just looks awesome.
Yeah, I was the one that was captured the footage for you for that direct comparison in Super Circuit, and I've never really played Super Circuit before that point, and oh god, was it terrible to go back to that trying to get that footage. I was miserable, and the thing that struck me the most was just how dull that level was to me.
Right.
I did it multiple times just trying to get the perfect shot to match it up for the trailer as best as we could, and the track just did not impress me at all. And that's the difference here, is that this track looks fun. It looks like they took a track that was kind of and added an element to it that maybe doesn't enhance it too much, but it adds a little bit of flair that it desperately needs.
Yeah, it totally does. And some people even theorized in our comments that, because it's jacked up, some people think that maybe a hint that it might actually change elevation as you're going like lap to lap, maybe.
I think that'd be awesome.
That would be the coolest thing ever. Like, it may not even change how it plays that much, but it would. I think it would look totally cool, especially if it's changing elevation as you're on it.
I think it's just if it did do that, it'd be a nice extra step to give this course personality. When
exactly,
honestly, there was nothing there. I'm sorry if you like Super Circuit, but there was no personality to that course whatsoever.
Yeah, it is kind of strange that they even chose that course, because I'm not a huge fan of Super Circuit, or even a fan of Super Circuit at all. But I can already think of courses that I would have liked to have seen updated more than that. But I guess, this one is working out, so maybe Nintendo knows something I didn't. Now, real quick, they also added a few other things to the course. They've added a lot of banners in the background, like they tend to do, and that's just a cool little detail. What surprised me is that they're actually adding oil slicks, or at least an oil slick, to this level, which is something more reminiscent of like the original Mario Kart Super Nintendo games. It wasn't something that was actually in Super Circuit. So, you know, I guess it's there just to liven up that bend a little bit more. But it just goes to show, like, you know, they are really thinking about how to update these courses. And I think nothing shows that better than perhaps Tick-Tock Clock, originally from Nintendo or Mario Kart DS. Because this track is barely recognizable. I mean, it's recognizable by the fact that it's a giant clock, of course, and how many clock-themed courses have there been. But it just looks so vastly improved over the DS one, like, just visually, that it is almost hard to, like, recognize as being the same thing. Because the original game just took place in this big, giant, empty room, and now there's all these clock gears moving in the background, and just all these great details. Like how there's a giant alarm clock over the finish line now. It just looks really cool.
And they added an extra pendulum, as a lot of people pointed out, and as we noticed as well. It's just like, it's this kind of updating that I loved seeing, and, you know, I'm a huge fan of the DS version, and I want to race this course. It looks fun.
Yeah, I really like Tick-Tock Clock. Especially, I used to play at GameSpot. On every lunch break, we'd have like 4 to 6 of us get together for Mario Kart DS, and one guy would always play as frickin' Bowser in the biggest cart possible, and he would just like ram into us at top speed, and it would cause us to go flying off the course. And I remember that happening quite a few times with Tick-Tock Clock. Because there's you know, very low walls in that course. So when I was doing the comparison video and the analysis, I was trying to figure out, you know, how exactly this track was built, and the second pendulum was really screwing things up. Because I was trying to figure out which one was the original one. I'm pretty sure I figured it out based on the track design. But even in that section, they're still changing how the track actually works, as far as I can tell. Because in the original game, when you pass that pendulum, it sloped down, or when you reach that corner rather, it sloped downward to these 3 or 4 giant gears you have to race across. Whereas now, like, it has a little drop off. So they're just really, I mean, I don't know why they changed that, but you know, again, they're just changing things all over the place this time. I think far more so than we've seen in past retro courses.
It is very interesting that they decided to make all these changes, but I can't say I'm against it. I mean, I'm not a purist. I don't want these courses to be exactly the same. It's nice to see them come back. That's why the Classic Cups are so fun. But right. I think what makes the Classic Cups even more fun is seeing how they take those elements from those games and seeing how they update them. And as you said, Tick-Tock Clock is a wonderful example of that. Yeah,
I totally agree. And now another great example of that, as really almost all these courses are, is Grumble Volcano. Because it looks freaking amazing here. Like, they've done, it never was my favorite track in the original game, and it probably still won't be here. But they've so much improved how it looks. Especially if you watch our, you know, again, our head-to-head. You can just really see how much detail they've added here, like whether it's the lava flows coming down the mountain, or seeing the volcano in the background, like when it erupts now, and the lighting effects coming from it, and the shockwave, like you actually see the shockwave coming out. And by the way, in the trailer, they timed it perfectly. I don't know how many times they had to record that clip, or if they just use like some, you know, developer shenanigans to get it just right. But you know, they have Peach going over her jump, doing a stunt, you know, which activated the slow motion feature of the game, which we still don't fully understand, as the volcano's erupting. So it's erupting in slow motion. It just looks freaking awesome. And you see like all those lava, like magma pouring down the sides of it.
Yeah, it really does. This is an example of them not really, from what I can tell, not really changing up the course itself, but just improving the visuals so much that it almost feels new.
Just with how much better it looks here. Like, it's, again, it's almost... I mean, not to the same extent as Tick-Tock Clock, but it is almost hard to recognize as being from like the previous game. It is a vast increase in visuals.
Yeah.
Now we can see a lot of other enhancements in DK Jungle, which actually, you know, looks pretty similar gameplay-wise, including having all the same obstacles. Like, you can even just barely see a frog in the background, just like in the original game, which I'd actually totally forgotten about until I was playing the track for the analysis. I'm like, oh wait, there's frogs here. Then went back to the trailer and barely picked one out in the background. But visually, this course is just fantastic looking now. Like, you know, I mean, it being a jungle, you know, in particular a Donkey Kong one, you know, they've always been just filled with details in the games themselves. And it's awesome to see them go back and really just ramp up this course to basically making it look even closer to how, you know, to Tropical, or to Donkey Kong Country Returns. Even though the original course did a really good job capturing the essence of it, now they're completely capturing the visuals of it. It just looks great, especially like in that one scene where you're going by DK's house, and you had like the waterfalls in the back. Again, the whole waterfall thing. Just it looks great. You ever played Mario Kart 7 at all, right? Or...
No, I didn't. And I think I said this in the first discussion where when I saw this, I'm like, oh, cool. They created a Donkey Kong Returns track, not realizing that it was in 7. So I think, again, that's just a high regard for just how good these graphics are, is that they could make a level that was already established and make me think it's brand new.
Yeah, it shows that they're not half-assing it. Like, they are actually going all out and redesigning these courses, at least visually, to make it appear as if, they're brand new. Now, speaking of redesigning, as I mentioned, for the most part, this track is, as far as we can tell, extremely similar. But there is one pretty big change. And that is, well, I say that kind of loosely. A loose, pretty big change. And that's, the addition of an anti-gravity section when you go inside the Golden Temple. Because before, you used to just curve around on the track that slowly ramped upward. Whereas now, you enter an anti-gravity section and you kind of loop around, on a slightly steeper section. So that's kind of the weird thing, though, is, although, this anti-gravity section is new, it's really not adding that much. It looks like a pretty mild incline even. Like, it looks like something you would find in a normal Mario Kart game even before anti-gravity was a thing. Yeah,
it didn't look, surprisingly, not very visually impressive. Just sort of there and to say, hey, yeah, we have anti-grav in this section. But I think the rest of the level looks so solid that I don't mind it so much.
Yeah, no, it does look really good. Like, I almost think what they could have done, because since you were kind of, mentioning how it didn't look impressive, is when you enter the temple, you can see there's, like, light filtering into the ceiling. What if, you enter the temple, then you actually came out the roof instead, like the track, wrapped up through the roof or something? Maybe that's how you entered. I don't know. I feel like they could have definitely improved that section of the track a lot, though, just to make it more visual or, more interesting from a track design perspective. Now, what are your favorite levels that you've seen so far of this game? Maybe not just from the new trailer, but, from in total.
I have to say that the ones that stood out to me the most so far, I'm just thinking back to what just catches my attention. It would have to be the sky level with the airships and the beanstalk and all that. That one's just visually impressive. Love the look of that. The airport, just because of the details and just looks like a lot of fun. The Larry Lights is what we're calling it, disco level. And then probably fourth favorite would probably be the Shy Guy Falls. Just really cool designs all around, new takes on all of them, and just really shows the potential of the concept with each of those.
Yeah, and that's a pretty... it's hard to go wrong. It's hard to go wrong with any selection here, I'd say, and I pretty much agree with what you just said. Of this new trailer, Shy Guy Falls is probably my favorite. Followed by, I would probably say, maybe the water park. Larry Lights, I like how it's designed. I'm not sure if I'm totally in love with the concept of the level, but I'm gonna have to play it to actually see how it works. And then add to that the airport level of the previous trailer is probably still my overall favorite of what they've shown off, because that level is freaking awesome, especially because how it references every other level basically that we've seen.
That level has been a boon to us. Oh my gosh, it's been so nice, because we could make this is here. Maybe there's a level called this, and it does this, and what do you know? Yep. It does.
I'm still really hoping. I've been looking at the background so closely to see if there is actual physical ties, geographical ties to other levels in the game, like there were in Double Dash. Because I want that to happen again. This is the closest we've seen them get to that point without actually doing a Double Dash stage where you can actually see other tracks in the background. So I am hoping that we'll get some of that here. But even without it, they are doing a really good job, connecting these courses in some way, whether it's through ads or through banners or through, even similar vehicles appearing in the background. But I would love to see, if, in the background of one track, if you could see, that Princess Peach statue from the San Francisco course way off in the distance. It would just be awesome if they went the extra mile again, like they did with Double Dash, and just tie all these courses together even more so.
And it's totally possible too, looking at these courses, because you have the airport in a sort of tropical area because of all the piantas, and then nearby the tropical thing you have all the Dolphin Shoals level, going into some mountains, and you have the Shy Guy Falls. Maybe you could see a building in the middle of that San Francisco level that sort of beating to a rhythm, and that's where the Larry Lights is held. That sort of thing.
Right.
We haven't seen any examples of this yet, but it seems like if they decide to do that, it's entirely possible. Because these are so similar, and you can just place, okay, there's this here, maybe this is over that way or in that direction, just off to the side.
Yeah, I mean, I would almost be, I mean, at this, well, I would almost be surprised if this isn't the case to some level, even though we have had no sign of it yet, just because of how detailed the backgrounds already are. Like, even just, I was rewatching the first trailer a few days ago for the analysis, and in the first level being, you know, the new Mario circuit, you can see like these like really cool structures in the background, like these really cool. I can't remember if they were floating or not, but they were like rising out of the water. These really cool islands, you know. And we're just getting a level of detail even in the background that we haven't quite seen before. So I would be disappointed they don't, you know, do what Double Dash did and have, you know, being able to see other courses in the distant background, because it is so detailed as is. It would be such an awesome thing to do.
Oh, totally. Totally.
Yep. Alright, well, do you have any final thoughts, Derek, on the latest trailer? Anything we need to cover in our previous discussions or analysis videos you wanted to discuss, or any final thoughts?
Well, I guess nothing really, any final thoughts, just, again, looking forward to it. But I guess the question I have for you is, what other classic levels would you like to see appear here?
Oh, that is a really good question.
I have one in my mind, but I'll wait for yours first. Unless you need to think about it.
No, I mean yes, but no. Okay, so I mean anything for Double Dash. I'd love to see back here, but I just love most of the tracks in that game. I mean, I feel like Baby Park would be awesome, like with the anti-gravity mechanic.
Oh wow!
Like if they just had like loop on itself at some point, you know, like maybe just turn, you know, just invert half of it or something.
Or just have it rotate upside down and stuff as you're going around.
I mean, the track's already insane, and adding anti-gravity to it could make it even more insane, which would be awesome. So I'd be on board for that. Thinking back, I've always loved Calamari Desert, which I think they brought back from Mario Kart 7. I think it'd be cool to see that again. Especially if they somehow added anti-gravity to that level, like maybe make the train go on the anti-gravity too. And then, you know, Rainbow Road 64, I think would be really cool to see. I think they'd have to heavily revamp that course, but you know, add some anti-gravity to it. It could be really fun to see that come back.
Yeah.
So what do you have in mind though?
The only one that really came to mind is like what could be really cool for what they're doing with this. I forget the actual name of it, but Yoshi's Maze from Mario Kart 64.
Yoshi Valley, or was it Yoshi's Valley?
I can't quite remember, but I just remember like you could never know what place you're in, and well, you only knew what place you're in, and everybody was all over the place. Imagine what they could do with that concept, with the anti-gravity mechanics, the flying mechanics, the swimming mechanics. Just have a true maze where you have no idea where you are in place to everybody else because of it going this way, that way, every way.
You know, it's funny you bring that up. That would be really cool. I always love that level, and it would be cool to see it updated, or at least that ideology brought, you know, into a new track with anti-gravity. Looking at everything we've seen so far, it doesn't seem like there's that many alternate paths or shortcuts. There are a couple branching paths, you know, which are very obvious for the most part. There are. I mean, granted, we haven't seen all of these tracks, and so maybe they're really well hidden. But I haven't seen anything, like any really shortcuts at all. I did point out like a corner cut you can make in Larry Lights, but that's really it. Besides, you know, some of the, you know, very obvious alternate paths you pointed out. But you know, they might just be hidden. So I'm hoping, you know, I'm really hoping that they have some really like kind of off the wall, so to speak, anti-gravity sections that you actually have to go seek out. Like I know with Double Dash in Yoshi Circuit has this really crazy shortcut where you have to go like off. You have to drive off a ledge and then like you land into a tunnel that really you have no idea is even there unless you go exploring for it. And it'd be cool to see something along those lines here. I'm almost concerned that all the anti-gravity sections are just super obvious, so you won't ever get any cool shortcuts with them, but who knows.
Guess we'll find out.
Yes, we will. Alright, well that wraps up our Mario Kart 8 discussion. I think it looks awesome. I think we're agreed on that point. So thanks for watching, guys. If you want to find out more about this game, make sure to watch our most recent analysis, and stay tuned for another analysis coming up probably soon once I recover fully from the last one. If you liked our discussion, though, make sure to follow us and like us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. You can find links to it in the description below. We post all kinds of things there, and keep an eye on GameXplain.com for more Mario Kart 8 and other things gaming as well. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. Bye.